My name is Vic. This is my podcast. Welcome to episode 19 of Vicsplaining. It has been so long, but thanks for coming back. I always want it here for the effect and the smell, but it's always too much. How the fuck are y'all? I don't know when this is going to go up, but I am coming to you from the holy month of Ramadan, which may seem contradictory because I just swore. I'm sorry. So sorry. I have had this episode recorded now. I'm so embarrassed that I've had episode 19 recorded and editing in my queue for over 2 months now. And I just haven't done anything with it because, for one, it was over 2 hours and it just said a whole lot of stuff that I just didn't. Looking back, I'm like, I don't stand by any of this stuff anymore. Not any of it. Like, there's still a shred of truth in the stuff that I said. But the further and further along that we got, I recorded this in like late December. It is now late February of 2026. There were so many things that I was talking about in that episode that I'm like, this isn't even relevant to like today now. You know what I mean? So it's just like, who cares? Like, I just was editing and I was like, oh my God, Vic, who cares? Hello, kitty. This cat is so funny. She never cares about like when I am doing anything else, but whenever I sit at this desk and I'm like locked in, ready to work, ready to record, ready to do whatever, she's suddenly in need of so much affection. So yeah, it was like, things were going crazy with ICE. And I had a part about ICE in the last episode that I recorded, but it was focusing on the ICE raid that occurred here near Savannah, Georgia. And it was like with the murders of Keith Porter, Alex Preddy, and Renee Good, it just didn't feel super relevant to talk about that anymore. Not that that's not relevant, because I mean, that really is the way that whole situation is blowing up in Brian Kemp's face is admittedly very funny. Hold on, I got to get rid of the cat. 1 second, y'all. Okay, I'm back. And I had to grab my plant. Do you see how horrible my plant is dying? It's because the cat keeps attacking it. And, I know there are plant parents in the audience that are like, Vic, like, you could do this, you could do that. I'm over it. I'm just so over it. I don't want to do it anymore. I have a label on it. Oh, you can't see it with the light, but like it says plant in Spanish because I'm trying to get better at my Spanish. I can understand it while I'm reading it and like hearing it for the most part when people don't speak too fast, which, is very useless if you're talking to mostly like Mexicans, Argentinians, and Puerto Ricans because they speak very, very fast. But my pronunciation is not great, so I'm not even going to try it on here. And I'm also trying to get my fiance to speak Spanish as well because, like I was just mentioning with ICE, we need to do everything that we can right now to protect the immigrants in our communities. And the most prevalent immigrant community that I am around here in Georgia is primarily Mexican Americans. So that's very important to me. But back to what I was saying, with everything going on, it's just like it felt less and less relevant for me to post the episode in the condition that it was. So I kept pushing it back and I kept pushing it back and I kept pushing it back. And then if you remember the article that I mentioned a few episodes back, I was talking about how like, oh, I have an article coming out, blah, blah, blah. But I never actually mentioned like where it was going to be published or when it was going to be published, primarily because I did not know. It finally was published in January of 2026. And that put a wrench in things as well because I was like, wow, I have so much going on. I have all these conference requests. I have law school applications. And then remember, guys, I'm still getting married and I'm planning my own wedding. So it's like I'm going through a lot right now. So I guess the word would be burnout. I don't know if it was burnout really. I think I was more so like immobilized by perfectionism. I wanted this episode to be perfect. I was editing it. I was adding all these flashy graphics and everything, and I just could not stomach posting it in the way that it was. So I kept pushing it back, pushing it back, pushing it back, trying to find time to edit this 2-hour behemoth while also working a full-time job and also getting all this new news. I was talking about stuff that's just not even relevant anymore back in the last episode. I talked about stuff. You ever met somebody who's like really, really online and they talk about something that's happening on Twitter or TikTok, and it's obvious to you that, like, oh, they say everybody thinks this, but what they really mean is that the majority of this TikTok comment section means this. With the change in the TikTok terms of service recently, I deleted my TikTok. I do not mean that I deleted the app. I completely deleted my account. When I tell you so many of the things that I have been thoroughly concerned with, I have just not been concerned with anymore because they're just not that it's like not in a situation of like, oh, nobody's talking about this and it's being suppressed and TikTok is the only group of people that's gonna like talk about like just shit that doesn't matter. Nobody cares about the stuff that y'all are talking about. And I mean, this is the reason I left Tumblr. This is the reason I left Twitter. This is the reason I left Reddit. You start to understand that a lot of things that people are posting are important to them because they're projecting their anger, or they're projecting their lack of like their stagnant nature. They're projecting that onto the situation. It's not because everyone feels this way and everybody is saying this and everybody's not saying it. People are using generalizations in order to like make these big sweeping like conversations, and honestly, like getting published, engaging with academia, having so much strenuous peer review stuff has reminded me of that. There's been so many things that I've said where I've been like, we all know this, or we all believe this, and it's like, no we don't, no we don't. Source, like, what are we talking about? So it's just like I would watch the episode back and I would edit it and I would just be sitting there like, oh my goodness, I don't care about any of the stuff that I'm talking about. Like, ICE is going insane. This president is going insane. And I'm not saying that I'm a news channel, because I'm not. This is not a news podcast. I know there are a lot of people that are like, I get my news from you. Please don't, because I'm one person and I'm only going to talk about stuff that I find interesting. So there's so many blind spots that you are not getting if you're just listening to me for your political news. You should definitely delve into something different. I'm not saying, to consume legacy media all the time necessarily, because legacy media also has an agenda. I'm just saying you should be consuming multiple different things and then coming to your own conclusion. I think, but I mean, people who listen to this podcast, I assume, are really good at critical thinking anyway. So I got to a point where I was like, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with what I'm posting anymore. And I mean, it was about stupid stuff too. I'm gonna talk about Heated Rivalry a little later on in this episode. That's why I have the long game back here. I thought it would be really funny to have the long game and the Quran in the background, because I feel like it really encompasses me as a person. But um I talked about Heated Rivalry in the last episode. And not only did I talk about shit that I didn't care about, now I've watched Heated Rivalry 11 times. There's so much stuff that I was missing the first few times that I watched it, or the first time that I watched it, that I think I can come at it a little more um, eloquently than I did in the previous episode. So I just was like, I don't want this. And so originally I was thinking, okay, Vic, you're going to spin this because no one's seen the episode. You're just going to post the clips from that episode as a bonus episode. And, people will eat it up and people will subscribe to your Patreon and your Substack or whatever. I'm tired. I'm tired of monetizing every little thing. I have a full-time job. And I do believe that I should be compensated for my work or whatever. But also, I didn't start this to make a shit ton of money. If I start making a shit ton of money, that's just the, That's a plus. But that's not why I did this podcast. And when people come up to me and tell me, "Wow, I really loved your episodes. Wow, I really like this." It's not necessarily because it's like, "Oh, I love the fact that you paywall your stuff or whatever." Like that's not so not to say that there won't be a monetizable option anymore, because I do know that there are people that just want to support me to support me. They want to help me get better equipment. Oh my gosh, this incense. Hold on, please. Sorry. Okay. They want to help me get better equipment. They want to help, like, just encourage me to come back to the pod, because it is difficult when it's like you have a job that actively financially incentivizes you to continue doing that job. It's very easy to get lost in that. And I mean, it's very rewarding, like, politically and emotionally and all those things. It feels very self-fulfilling to just do my 9 to 5. So it's very hard to come back and record, and like money is a great motivator, but I really don't want that to be the end all be all. Um, so I don't know. I wanted to keep Substack for my writings, though, like paywalled writings. But the Substack CEO is kind of talking crazy, and everybody. Okay, I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to sound like a dick when I say this, but like everyone's not a writer, and that's okay. You know, I'm not an athlete. Nobody is arguing that I'm an athlete. I'm not a singer. I'm not I have things that I also am not good at. I'm not good at everything, and I think it's normal to not be good at everything. A lot of people on Substack are not good at writing. If they're not actively using ChatGPT or some kind of chatbot to enhance their writing, or like just do all of it for them, um they are straight up just leaning on cliches, and like they don't really know how to write in a way that is like actually moving. I can name on one hand the amount of people that I have found through Substack where their writing has actually been beyond trite. Like I actually don't care for it. I like following my friends on there. I like following people that I've met around Atlanta, stuff like that. But I don't actually genuinely like first off, I don't even have the Substack app on my phone anymore. So it's not something that I scroll. And then the times that I do read Substack are usually on desktop, and like I don't know, it's just like I don't know. I'm trying to think of something. I'm trying to think of something to do, because I do still want to have an ability for people to give me money if they are interested. And I do want people to be rewarded with stuff. I don't think I could do the bi-weekly thing anymore. Obviously, you know what I mean? And then I don't think that it should be a situation of like there should be an expectation of a new episode ever so often. I think it should be more so you get this reservoir of episodes that you can peruse on your own time with one payment, rather than like monthly or anything like that. I will not lie to you. My patrons and my Substack subscribers have gotten me out of many a jam, okay? When I was in the hospital and I had to start paying on my medical bills, after my living expenses would be exhausted with my regular check, I did start digging into my subscriber like base, because I usually just send that to my savings, and it does help a little bit, but it's not like a serious, like I'm not bleeding for money. Um, I think I was back in 2020 when I first had this podcast idea, and this is going to sound really funny because, like, obviously I don't idolize this person anymore. But I was a big fan of Tiny Meat Gang. And I was just a fan of the way that Cody Ko would go about monetizing not only his YouTube channel, but also his podcast, because they would always do last week's podcast first. And then they'd be like, if you want this week's, you have to subscribe to the Patreon. It's only $5 a month. And I'm like, oh, how much could they be making? You go on there, they're making at least like, I don't know, or at the time, like at their peak, like the peak Tiny Meat Gang podcast, they were making like $50,000 a month. Now that's pre-taxes, so I don't know how much was actually going in their pockets. You have to divvy it up amongst the crew, and then also there were two people. Noel Miller is also a host on the Tiny Meat Gang as well. But like, it was just crazy. I was like, they're rolling in it. And I told my friend at the time that I was trying to start the podcast with, like, this could be a real source of passive income. But the way that I engage with this podcast and the way that I engage with people who listen to it, and like the discussions we have and all these kind of stuff, I don't really care to make money off of this anymore. Um, And also, I think that money is like kind of ruining the internet. Shocker. The thing that's always ruining everything is continuing to ruin everything. Capitalism is making it so that, people are obsessed with quality over, or obsessed with quantity over quality, obsessed with the idea of being a content creator rather than an artist or an orator or a writer or something like that. Even when I'm on Substack, even though I am an academic and I very much value writing things that are accurate, making sure that I cite things, making sure that I am like discussing things correctly, even with all of that, it still creeps in. I would publish on Substack, and Substack gives you all those pretty little analytics, and you go, how can I hold audience retention? How can I do this? I'm sick of it. I'm really sick of it. I'm really, really tired of it. In a world of AI and, shortcuts and nonsense, I really just want to be like, I hate to sound like that because it makes me sound like a pretentious asshole, but like, I really want to embody that old YouTube feel where it's just like a bitch talking, looking dead into the camera. You know what I mean? I don't really, so again, I don't know if I'm going to take down my Patreon or my Substack, but I do know that I'm going to move the bonus episodes most likely to a different reservoir so that, and I think I'm going to do like a one-time payment situation because I really don't want to have a monthly subscription model anymore. And I don't need the money. I'm not, I'm not a sociopath, so I'm not trying to be, rich in any way, shape, or form. Or at least I'm not anymore, I guess. Like, if you want to consider me in 2020 being broke, wanting to make money, sociopathic, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I say all this to say that I had a bunch of the episode recorded. I had a full bonus episode recorded as well. And it was about, I think, overall 4 hours of content. I threw them all in the trash. I do this thing sometimes where if my Sims game, if I, for an analogy, I like to play The Sims. And sometimes if you play with mods on PC, you know how this is. Sometimes there's so much stuff you have to update and you just say fuck it and delete everything. Sometimes it's just deleting all the mods. Sometimes I delete all my saves because these are not real people. I don't put real people in my game. I know some people put real people in their game. I would get too attached. One time I tried to make a Sims game that I put my friends in, and then one of my friends died in the game, and I was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. Like, that's a little too much emotional damage for me. So I always make up fake people to play in The Sims. And I just delete all of them because I don't have personal attachment to anything related to the game. And it's always so freeing to have a clean slate. And this is what this is. This is a clean slate for me. I don't know if you feel some type of way about me because it's taken me too long to get back behind the mic. I'm sorry. That's just something you're going to have to personally deal with because I could not. In the mental space that I was in the past 2 months, I was not able to come back to this in a way that I would have been proud of. And if I would have published the previous episodes that I had recorded, it just wouldn't have been nice. I also recognize that I've been making a lot of comments about the visual, like the background, the incense, the long game, all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry for the audio listeners. I have the Holy Quran next to me, next to Rachel Reed's The Long Game, which is the sequel book. It's the 6th book in the Game Changer series, which is the book series that inspired Heated Rivalry. And then I just had this incense blowing in my face for a majority of this first segment. But yeah, I think I needed to have a moment to just stop being in the content slop production mindset and more so get in the mindset of what do I actually want to put out onto the internet. And this is what I want to put out, especially now. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to be famous. I don't really want to be famous. Or if I am famous, I want to be like small town famous. I want to be abortion famous, or I want to be gender studies famous, or I want to be, I don't know, have a cult following on a podcast. I don't want to be like a celebrity by any means. It sounds like hell on earth, and I'm not joking. I don't want to be like that. No, I don't want to. However, with the publishing of my article, so with my article and my thesis, you can see analytics similar to Substack that show you how people have come across your work, figured you out, all this kind of stuff. And the people who asked me to write the article that I wrote, they found me through my thesis, which is crazy. And then they requested me to write because they really liked the way that my thesis was written. Well, if you go into my thesis and you look at how people are finding you, yes, some people are just searching on Google. Yes, some people are using DuckDuckGo. That's what I would recommend over Google. There are people who are using like ChatGPT and being like, who's Vic Kennedy? What? You know what I mean? And so it's like, I'm not saying that I am famous or anything close to it, but I do describe myself somewhat as a public figure. And I don't mean that to say that like everyone knows me. I am really just nobody. But to very specific groups of people, I'm somebody. And what I mean by that is that I read a thesis where somebody quoted me, and they did what you do when you quote any author. They just go, Kennedy argues that blah, 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 blah. But it's like that's foundational knowledge that is now going into this big AI algorithm that's, and then I'm getting connected. You know what I mean? This person wrote this thesis. This person has a podcast. This person has this article. And it's all becoming a big conglomerate of who I am in the public's eyes. No, the public doesn't know all of my opinions and all of my thoughts and stuff, but I still do have a responsibility somewhat as a public-facing person in a way that it's not as simple as like somebody who has like a LinkedIn account, you know what I mean? Or somebody who has like 1,000 followers on Instagram or whatever. It's like I'm considered somewhat of an authority. I'm not saying that I'm like a big wig or anything in the space. I'm just saying that like if somebody goes to some piece of shit chatbot and goes, could you name some authors that write about Black gender ontology? Because I have postured myself as such, my name might come up, and then people are freaking researching me. You know what I mean? It's kind of dealing with that whole idea of being perceived. So I really wanted to delete those episodes because I didn't feel like they represented me anymore. There wasn't anything particularly offensive or upsetting that I said in the podcast episodes. It just kind of felt like slop. I didn't feel like it, I didn't feel like when I listened to it, I wasn't like excited to put it out. Every time I have an episode to put out to you guys, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you guys to hear it. And I'm excited to get the feedback, and I'm excited. I wasn't excited to hear any of what I was talking about. And so I stopped, and now I'm back. So, to sum up what's been going on, I think I experienced a little bit of burnout. I'm still dealing with my very full schedule and everything that I have going on. I am currently fasting. It is currently Ramadan, late February 2026. What have I been up to for real? I published the article. I'm doing a lot of research on, I'm trying to go to some conferences this year and hopefully produce some more work and, you know, engage with academia more, because my 9 to 5 has given me the freedom to do so without having to make academia my main career. So it's like I can do these things and I don't have to sit there and go, oh man, this paper better be a banger, because if not, I don't know how I'm going to eat tonight. You know what I mean? Like it's given me the ability to separate that. And so I've really been able to take my time and engage with the work and, you know, be in the work. Like I mentioned earlier, I am obsessed with Heated Rivalry. Maybe not for the reasons that you think, though, and I'm going to talk about that later. And so I've been watching that. Everybody's been asking me, what are you watching? What are you doing? Heated Rivalry. But that came out 2 months ago. I know. I never stopped. There's only 6 episodes. I do not care. I'm going to watch it again. You know what I mean? I deleted my TikTok. I've been helping South Carolina with against these anti-abortion legislators, and you know, just talking with people on the ground, talking with students, talking to the youth, talking to people here in Georgia, dealing with stuff like that. I ran a 5K a few weeks ago for Palestinian children's mental health efforts. I've been reconnecting with nature, reconnecting with my family, and obviously, you know, being very grounded in my religion all at the same time. It's been a doozy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it here. And I hope that you'll stick around to listen to some of it. Thank you. I want to talk about lesbians to start off. And this is something that I haven't wanted to talk about because I am not a lesbian. Um, there was a point in my life where I shortly did identify with the label of lesbian, but I never really like talked about it for real. Um, but I don't ever think that I was one. And I say that because I I think I still have a lot of internalized biphobia, but I used to be one of the most biphobic motherfuckers on the planet, bro. Like, I hated bisexual people really, really badly. And the reason was because I was deeply, deeply jealous of them. You ever seen somebody who's in the closet and they don't know how to, like, talk about their feelings, so they end up being really, really homophobic? That was me with bisexual people. You might say, Vic, how can you say that you were specifically biphobic and not homophobic? I was not homophobic. I don't have any, or I didn't at the time. Like, not that I've developed it, but like I didn't have any ill will towards strictly homosexual people. I had a problem with bisexual people because I thought they wanted too much. I really fell into the stereotypes. I thought they were greedy. Oh my gosh, I have a book. Wait, hold on. I have a book that fits this moment. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hold on. I thought they were greedy. This book is called Greedy by Jen Winston, and the subtitle is Notes from a Bisexual That Wants Too Much. I genuinely did fall into that stereotyping because I was just like, there's not a feasible way to be bisexual in this world where, you know, people only care about who it is that you're sleeping next to, who it is that you're going to be following, going through life with. Um, I have obviously since evolved in my thinking, but even beyond that, I think that we misunderstand queerness, whether it is lesbianism. Um, there's a word for like gayness specifically for men who love men, but I can't think of it. I'm gonna say Achillean because that's the term that my friend uses. But I think there's another like less colloquial term, but I'm just gonna say Achillean, lesbianism, bisexuality, all these things. Um, there's more to all of those identities than the person that you're sleeping with and the person that you're dating. And I know that that's like not a popular opinion, but it's like, it's kind of like the whole discourse about um, can trans men be lesbians? You have to see it from the perspective of a real person, not from the perspective of somebody rage baiting you on TikTok or on Instagram Reels. You have this person who grew up assigned female at birth, has dealt with misogyny their entire life, has only dated women, has only been with women, grew up in these spaces that were explicitly lesbian and, you know, not sapphic, not WLW, like specifically lesbian. And then they come out as trans. And then they have to adjust their life to being perceived in some spaces as a trans man, but in most spaces as a cisgender man, even though that's never been a privilege or a position that they've ever been able to occupy. The people, like, say that they have a long-term partner that they've been with for years and years and years. I'm talking 10, 15, 20 years. And then this person transitions, but the person who's with them identifies as a lesbian and loves them all the same. Is that person not still a lesbian? They are culturally lesbian. They are entrenched in lesbian community. You know what I mean? And it's hard because you try to do a one-to-one comparison with male on male sexuality, and it's not similar because lesbians have the added layer of misogyny. I believe that it was, oh my gosh, it was Wittick. It was Wittick. It was Adrian Rich, and I want to say Wittick. Oh my gosh, it's so bad that I don't remember. There's an article. Oh my goodness. DuckDuckGo, you're not going to be help for me. I have to go to the big goog. Hold on. Unfortunately. Monique Wittick. Yes. Oh my gosh, my mind, my mind. Okay, it was Monique Wittick in the 1970s and 80s who argued that women or lesbians are not women. The reason being that women is an underclass for men. When you go into this idea of complementary gender, women exist to complement men. So therefore, being a woman and not being attracted to men inherently distances you from womanhood. And it gives you this feeling of a completely different, like, whatever, you know? And it's hard to parse out. And then it's like, you don't like men. The entire world is surrounded by, centers the feelings, the thoughts, the pleasure, everything of men and of masculinity, and you don't exist in that world. So you have to mourn not only, that part of yourself that might want to belong, even if you don't care for men, even if you don't care for patriarchy, even if you don't care for male centeredness, you still mourn it because there are people in your life that still want to argue and be like, no, you can be normal. You can be normal, in scare quotes. You know what I mean? So it's just like that. That's really hard to deal with. And then you have these people who transition, and then suddenly things are complicated. Things are complicated in a way that they shouldn't be complicated. Lesbians should be women that only date women. And that's what a lot of people believe. But that's not the case. There are lesbians that date trans men, not like serially, but maybe one or two. But that's not digestible for the norm. That's not digestible for, platforms like TikTok or Twitter or Tumblr. It doesn't fit in a cute little, 160 characters to just say stuff like that. The nuances get lost because we're not talking about real people when we get online. We're talking about hypothetical situations and things to rage bait each other. It's frustrating. And I feel like it does a big disservice to lesbians because lesbianism is not only so beautiful, but it's fluid. And what I mean by fluid is not the way people hear fluid and they feel very threatened. They're like, my sexuality is not fluid. Stop calling it fluid. Do you call gay men fluid? Do you call all these? Yes, everything is. And what I mean by fluid is that not to say that, oh, you're a woman that only loves women and eventually one day you'll like other genders as well. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it more so to say that, like, there are aspects of the love that you have for women that will be different, that are going to shift. Are you a STEM? Are you a stud? Are you a femme? Are you a butch? Oh my God. She's just a lesbian. Maybe the lesbian wants to use he, him pronouns or they, them pronouns or ze, zer pronouns. It doesn't negate the lesbian. Yeah, but okay, but what if the lesbian is assigned male at birth and then she's dating somebody who is assigned female at birth and they both identify as women, but sometimes they have sex with men on the side? Oh my God, do they identify as lesbians? Then that's fine. We need to stop being cops to each other. The obsession with having to segment identity, and it's only in lesbianism. This doesn't happen to gay men, and it's due to misogyny. Okay, all that pretense to say, the real topic that I want to talk about is Doechii. And that's the reason that I've waded into this topic, because I really don't like talking about lesbianism in general because I am bisexual. Everybody in the world knows that I'm bisexual. And beyond being bisexual, I am with a man. And I know that for a lot of people, that's the go-to. That's, oh, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You breeder, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't feel like talking about it. A lot of people like to negate bisexual women's, bisexual non-binary people, bisexual people in general, their queer lens that they're coming at things because they limit it to the person that you're sleeping with or the person that you're dating at the time. So even in the event that I was dating a non-binary person, if the non-binary person looked feminine, then it becomes this conversation of lesbians and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I'm still coming at it from a bisexual lens. But people don't see bisexuality as real. So I'm just yapping. So anyways, Doechii. Doechii is... So I always find talking about Doechii very difficult because I have listened to Doechii since 2018. Her first single, Girls, is one of my favorite songs ever. Um, I love everything about her. I love the way that she raps. I love the way that she's always been unapologetically queer. She's always been very openly bisexual. She's never shied away from her queerness, and she loves lesbians. I'm in her little broadcast channel on IG, and she sends this like, or her or her mods or whoever, they always send this picture of her holding the lesbian flag all the time, talking about how she loves lesbians. You know what I mean? Love her, love her, love her, everything about her. Recently, through her side blog that she uses for like, it's kind of like a Finsta, but it's more like a aesthetic, like pleasing blog. I don't know. It's private. I don't follow it. I don't know anything really about it. But she put lesbian in her bio to say that there are things that she posts about, like glamour, lifestyle, lesbian, basically saying that she's coming out as a lesbian, and she has not refuted these things. She hasn't come out and had like an actual conversation about it, but it seems that she has come out as a lesbian. And yay, woohoo. Lots of people come out as bisexual and then realize that they're lesbians. Lots of people come out as lesbians and then realize that they're bisexual. Like I said, even though this is a term that is controversial to a lot of people because they feel attacked, they feel like I am attacking their individual identity. That's not what I'm saying. These things are fluid. I think that we get in our heads this idea of being born this way and having a stagnant like gender or sexuality to the point that we feel like, oh, that was me masquerading. What I'm feeling now is actually my true self. I think we need to get rid of this idea of the true self and understand that you're going to be in flux for the rest of your life, babe. It doesn't matter how stationary, stagnant, or solid your identity is. You thinking that your situation is more solid because it's more predictable, you have patterns of life that are more predictable than the next person, doesn't necessarily mean that you're not fluid or in flux or any of those things. You are going to change and change and change until the day that you take your last breath. And I know that's really hard to hear for a lot of people, but I think that, again, I wade into so much lesbian discourse. I don't say anything, but I do see it, because, you know, despite what people like to argue, bisexuals are still very privy to that community. And as someone who has previously dated women and been very serious about dating women, I get this stuff on my feed as well. It's not like an intra community, like, oh, this is only for the lesbians. That it's just not happening, guys. We all are on the same internet. Am I on the lesbian side of TikTok? No. Like, you're just on TikTok. Anyone can see these videos. But anyway, there's been a lot of discourse around Doechii coming out as a lesbian, and specifically the idea of political lesbianism. Now, if you don't know what political lesbianism is, I talked about it a little bit in the episode talking about the 4B movement in Korea, talking about how there are women who are actively choosing not to engage with men. So they don't have sex with men, they don't marry men, they don't date men, and they don't have their children. That in itself is not lesbian behavior. Well, depends on what theorists you ask, but most people would argue that's not inherently lesbian behavior, because lesbian behavior is defined as when you engage with women and move out of your love for women and not your hatred for men. But political lesbianism came from the 1970s, and it was basically this idea of like, women are actively choosing not to date men. Therefore, they are lesbian, even if they might be bisexual or straight. They are going out of their way to only have a lesbian ethos or a lesbian politic. You know what I mean? And there's been some accusations towards Doechii of her operating as a political lesbian, meaning that she's not actually solely attracted to women, but rather she is embodying this political sentiment of, I do not agree with sleeping with men, therefore I'm only going to sleep with, date, love women to spite patriarchy and to spite, you know, the political obsession with making it so women must be with men, or that women have to be complements to men. And I feel like this goes back to what I was saying before. The people who are upset with her about this, it bothers me because it's like, you're trying to find a true self there. You're trying to be like, oh, well, she's not actually not attracted to men. I am. And that makes me more lesbian than this person. It doesn't, unfortunately. And I don't mean that to say that, like, I don't know, guys. Like, I just don't think sexuality can be quantified. I hot take, you know what I mean? I don't think it can be quantified. And if somebody identifies as a lesbian, I am far past, because I've done this, and I'm gonna be very, very honest on here, and openly apologize to this person. I don't talk to them anymore, and they don't mean a ton to me. I got to be honest, but I'm going to apologize to this person. I used to subtweet this one person who was dating a man in college and be like, "You're not a fucking lesbian, bitch. You're not a lesbian." It wasn't my business. I know of so many he, him lesbians. I know of so many transgender lesbians. I know of so many people whose whole gender situations would confuse and confuse you, confuse me, confuse people on the opposition, people on our side, all this kind of stuff. It's really not my business. Because if somebody comes to the point where they identify with the lesbian label, they know more about themselves than you do. Well, I can't relate to her. That's okay. And this is why I wanted to talk about this, because I feel like a lot of white people in the LGBTQ community, period, not just white lesbians, they feel the need to police people, but especially people of color, and especially women of color, black women, black lesbians. Who are you to say, actually, you're not a lesbian? You're not a lesbian because I can't relate to you and you don't have my specific situation. Remember back when I was talking about how people will make big generalizations, but what they're really doing is projecting based on their own opinions of things? Dude, you can't say that she's not a lesbian just because, oh, she might be a political lesbian. Who fucking cares? Do you know how... I don't know. I just don't care. One, neither you nor me are ever going to date Doechii. We're never going to fuck Doechii. You know, other than us buying a ticket to one of her concerts, we're probably never even going to speak to or see Doechii at any point. There's so many things where I hear them and I'm like, what is the issue? Well, she's a political lesbian. I'm a real lesbian. Okay. What did you win? That's like me saying, "Oh, you're cuz I have done this. I know of so many people who identify as queer or identify as bisexual, and what they actually mean is I have the knowledge of sexuality and gender to understand that it's all fake, but I don't actually date bisexually. Um I know many women that solely date men and have only dated men their entire lives and probably will never have sex with or date women, and the idea of marrying a woman is just too jarring for them because their internalized homophobia is just so great that they're not able to do whatever. Who am I to tell them that they're not bisexual? If they have come to the point where they think that they're bisexual, I can't come in and be like, actually, I've been policing your actions and inspecting your genitals and you're not. It's the same with like trans people. Now, I want to be very, very clear, and I want to be very, very, very obvious. I don't think I have to explain this to you guys, but I want to have the nuance in there as well. When I say you can't police this person's identity, I don't mean to say that that there aren't people within certain communities that need more support than others. For example, I was just using the example of trans people. Anybody can be trans. If you're saying that you're non-binary, if you're saying that you are binary, transgender, anything like that, I believe you. I'm going to use whatever pronouns you prefer. It does not matter to me, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't believe that those that are medically transitioning shouldn't be at the forefront of this movement, because they are the ones that need the most resources. Similarly, in lesbian communities, I do believe that political lesbians are still lesbians, but those that are actually in lesbian partnerships, in lesbian relationships, are dealing with specific things that plague lesbian community. I do believe that those people should be at the forefront. When we talk about allocating resources, when we talk about building community, it should be based on those people, like, before anybody else. I do agree with that. So it's not like, it doesn't have to be a or situation. You know what I mean? It can be an and. I do believe that anybody that claims to be a lesbian is a lesbian. And I also believe that those that are doing the more lesbian things should be the ones that are prioritized in community. I think that a lot of the lashing out that comes out within lesbian community is, again, lesbianism is so far removed from womanhood, because so much of what is enjoyable about womanhood, lesbians do not get to, they don't get to appreciate, because lesbophobia and misogyny is so serious and so dire and so dangerous. And at the same time, it's like, we can't go around telling people that they're not lesbians. It's so restrictive, the community, because everyone's trying to be cops, and then everybody is kind of like acting like they're holding a knife and they're waiting for a man to lurk around the corner. And I'm not even necessarily saying that there will be no men lurking around any corner. Men attack lesbians for, and specifically lesbians, for hella reasons. I think I talked about this in a previous episode where I talked about that woman-loving woman couple that was on the bus. It was either a bus or a train. It was in the UK, I think. I should probably know that. Sorry. I'm not going to say what country they're from, and I'm not going to look it up. I know I've talked about this on the pod before, but it was a couple, two girls, and they were on the train or a bus, and there were these men there, and they wanted them to kiss, and they wouldn't kiss for the men, and the men hit them. And then all of these comments started on TikTok, and no, not TikTok. Oh my gosh, I'm bringing myself into the future for no reason. This was during the Tumblr days. There were all these conversations on Tumblr about how, like, you see, bisexuals, you wouldn't understand, and asexuals for some reason always got hit under the bus. And me, as a closeted bisexual, I'd be like, yeah, get the asexuals. You know what I mean? So I've learned, I've changed, I'm different now. But there would be all these posts that were like, yeah, you guys can't understand what we go through. This is the reality of being a lesbian in public. And then one of the women that was attacked made a Medium article that was like, actually, we are both bisexual, or at least she was bisexual. And so it's like, when you guys say stuff like bisexuals don't go through this violence, you're literally speaking over me. You know what I mean? I think that everybody is so scared, and they're trying to find an imposter, that they're not even focusing on what lesbianism is and how expansive it can be. Because there's so many people who are purposely within the community trying to stir up drama, trying to stir up division, that they don't, like, I really resent the idea that lesbianism is restrictive, or that it's limiting, or anything like that. Lesbianism is very beautiful, and it encompasses so many different, like modalities of being. There are non-binary people who are lesbians. Lesbians use all kinds of pronouns. Lesbians have sex in all kinds of different ways. There are the ways that have been widely commodified. You know, there are the ways that men are obsessed with. There are the ways that are popularized in lesbian pornography. But there's so many different aspects of lesbianism that are just not talked about openly and fluidly. And then here's the other part, is that because there's this constant feeling of like, oh, there's going to be a man around the corner every 2 seconds, whether that means a man that's going to attack you, or somebody that I hold close in lesbian community is going to come out as bisexual, and they're going to fall in love with a man, and or people are going to tell me that I just need to find the right man, or whatever. Like, there's this weird paranoia there. Not weird. I understand the paranoia. We live in patriarchy. But like, because of all that, we don't get to explore the expansiveness and like all of the different things that go into, sorry, I got off. I repeated myself. No. TERFs and essentialist feminists sink their claws into this fear around men, and then trans people, particularly trans lesbians, are excluded from the rightful community that they have. There's this idea, oh my gosh, I have to talk about this, bro. And I mean, I'm not saying this to say that like political lesbianism is the way and it's perfect. And there was a lot of stuff that was wrong with 1970s feminism. But TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminist, there's this freaking phrase that I see on so many memes, and every time I see it, I block, because I'm like, you guys don't even know the rhetoric that you're toying with. I saw this freaking quote that was like, humans are the only group where the females of the group date their natural predator. The idea that someone who is assigned male at birth is your natural predator, even if it's backed up by statistics and all of these things, that is from trauma. And I don't mean to say that to lecture or to be like it's necessarily wrong for you to distrust men. I'm saying it more so to say that when people have gender changes or sexuality changes, you're going to take it a lot more personally than you need to, because you're not operating on, we don't have natural predators as human beings. This whole idea that like women are like a different species of like animal than men because men are brutal and rude is like not right. You know, it's not good. Even if there is a shred of truth in these conversations, to perceive men as your natural predator is very, very dangerous rhetoric. And then the idea that being assigned male at birth inherently makes it so you can't understand aspects of lesbianism. It invalidates the lived experiences of transgender lesbians. Well, you know, of course a transgender lesbian can experience lesbianism. They just have to engage in surgery, and they have to do this, and they have to do that, and they have to do this, and they have to do that. It's like everybody doesn't do all those things. Everyone's not going to be the perfect transgender person or the perfect lesbian or the perfect bisexual or the perfect whatever. Everyone is not going to be that. That's just not what it is. And I feel like there's so much pressure on, I'm primarily thinking about young lesbians, because when I did identify as, well, I've identified as the whole rainbow, baby. Like, I've identified as asexual, I've identified as a lesbian, I've identified as bisexual. And bisexual is where I am, and that's what I really feel passionate about at this moment. But I know that when I was straight, or when I identified as straight, if I would have heard half of this shit, this would have forced me much further into the closet. The constant infighting, the constant, well, are you actually, it's just policing, this constant segmentation, it's policing. And so what I have found to be a little more helpful, in my opinion, as of late, is that, because I have a lot of lesbian friends. So again, I'm privy to a lot of this discourse, and I'm privy to a lot of this conversation. I have to remind myself that a lot of people on the internet that are making these big claims about people that they don't know, oh, Doechii's not actually a lesbian because this, that, and the third happened, that this might be their only attempt at reaching out to queer community or lesbian community, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? This might be their only chance to actually speak to other people that are going through similar things as them. Everybody who posts things on the internet is just trying to relate to other people or project their pain about something onto other people. You cannot take it that deep or that seriously. And I know that's kind of hypocritical coming from me, seeing as I just spoke about a majority of these people for a really long time. But I say that to say that most of my queer community that I engage with is offline, because we're not having these conversations offline. Not to say that like we don't have like little conversations or like, you know, jokes and stuff, but like all in all, you're not going to the gay club and being like, oh my gosh, are you actually a lesbian? Because this is lesbian night. It's like, if this person is here, they probably are. And that's just where I'm moving from. And I'm really happy for Doechii. I'm really happy to have such a prominent, presumably lesbian, because she put it in her bio, but she hasn't said anything yet. Unless somebody else has information that I do not. But, you know, it's cool to have a lesbian rapper, a mainstream lesbian rapper, a Grammy-winning lesbian rapper. That's awesome, you know? And I really hate that it's moved from that's awesome to let's police everything about this woman's identity and figure out what she means and all. You just don't see that. You don't see that with men's sexualities either. You know what I mean? Like, same with bisexuals. You don't see bisexual men being as fervently questioned as bisexual women are. You don't see trans men as questioned as trans women, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess my ultimate conclusion is stan Doechii, stream girls, and misogyny wins again, I guess. I don't know. Completely switching topics, I want to talk about Heated Rivalry. I am getting sick of Heated Rivalry, but it's not for the reason that a lot of people have. A lot of people are sick of hearing about it because they don't like the show, or they don't like the actors, or they don't like seeing it everywhere, and it's become so popular that it's breached containment. Like, it's not, I hate to say it like this, but like, there are a lot of shows that are just deemed to be like gay shows. Like, this made a big splash in gay community, but it didn't necessarily break into the mainstream. I think we have a few examples of gay media that has. I think immediately of Trixie and Katya's podcast, RuPaul's Drag Race, and all of its like branch offs in general. I think of Brokeback Mountain. I think of Blue is the Warmest Color, unfortunately. Anything that's like made a big splash, but people don't just watch it as a gay movie. Like, they just watch it like it's a movie that also has gay people, or it's a TV show that also has gay people. Orange is the New Black is another one. You know what I mean? But this show is interesting to me because it has breached containment for two specific communities, and neither of those communities were ever supposed to interact. I do understand that let me get into it. Like, there's overlap for the communities, but not really. So this has breached containment into the mainstream ethos. What is the the lowest common denominator in Western society for consumption? White, cisgender, heterosexual women. When we talk about catering to consumers, when we talk about trying to hit our demographics, it doesn't really, like, I think I said this one time when I was talking about Taylor Swift and Beyonce, like, white women are going to be the main targets of a lot of things. White, straight, cisgender women, because they are the ones that are going in their pockets, spending, you know the phrase, bitches be shopping, women be shopping. It comes out of that. You know what I mean? So it's interesting because that is the exact demographic of romance novels. Heated Rivalry is based off of a romance novel series called Game Changers. Like I said, this is the 6th book in the series. There are currently 6 books. Book number 7 is coming out this September. I have already pre-ordered it. Don't confuse me pre-ordering it with me saying that it's a good series, by the way. I don't think that Rachel Reed is awesome at writing, but that's not because she's particularly god awful. It's that the stuff that's passable within the romance genre, especially with these cartoony ass covers, is very, very like the hurdle is very low to clear. I will say that you can tell very quickly amongst the 4 couples that she writes about, like around the 6 books, um, she has very preferential treatment towards Shane and Ilya. And I think that Jacob Tierney, the director of Heated Rivalry, the show, felt the same way. Apparently he reached out to her via Instagram DM to be like, could I adapt this into a TV show, which is crazy because that show has done wonders for the book. The stuff that they cut out of the book and include in the show, the stuff they add in the show, everything is so super intentional. And so he's really struck gold with this show. The issue is that it's not solely to cater towards romance readers, or at least that's not what has resulted. So romance readers, and this is, I guess this is kind of why I didn't really understand a lot of the discourse that was going on near the beginning of the show coming out, when people were like, oh, I'm not attracted to men, so I am not going to watch this show. For me, if there are queers on the TV, I'm going to watch it. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't have to I don't have to identify with a character in order to watch a story or appreciate like the cinematography of something. So I've never understood that perspective. But what I'm getting at is that this is also queer media. What a lot of gay people, and when I say gay people, I particularly mean cisgender gay men, what they don't understand is that cisgender straight women and cisgender queer women and queer people in general all consume male-male romance. And I've seen so many people be so shocked by the reception of the show because they're like, I didn't know that you guys would be interested in male-male romance. Girl, what do you think people be reading on AO3? Not to say that there's not female-male romance and female-female romance. I read it all. But a lot of fandom spaces were born out of shit like this, you know? And there's lots and lots of stuff that like is written like this, but isn't necessarily written with a queer lens in mind. Rachel Reed, I've seen rumors that she's bisexual. I've seen rumors that she's straight. It doesn't really matter to me. The point is that she's a cisgender woman who is attracted to men in some capacity. And all she writes is male-male romance. She is not like in the minority. A lot of the people who are writing on AO3, on fanfiction.net, on Wattpad are cisgender women who are somewhat attracted to men who write specifically male-male romance. But because this is now brought to the mainstream, because originally it was only airing on Crave Canada and its affiliates, but it got to be aired in the United States and other Western countries through HBO Max. So when it came to HBO Max and it became mainstream, not because, I mean, part of it obviously is that it's very sexy. It's very, it's on HBO, so not a ton is censored. There's no full frontal nudity, which is what I was really scared of when I first heard of the show. But there's no full frontal nudity, but they leave very, very little to the imagination. I am not going to lie to you and say that that's not a reason that it's popular, but I think the bigger reason that it's popular is because it's well written. Getting to why I'm tired of it, though, I really love the show. I'm tired of hearing about it, though, because a lot of people who are involved in the consumption of the show, this is their first real big fandom moment, and they do not know how to behave. Like, not only are they harassing the actors, making it so the actors have to change up their and I mean, the actors were unknown. Well, the main 2 actors were basically unknown prior to this this show. Connor Story starred in Joker 2, but that was the biggest role that he had. And then Hudson Williams, he really was unknown. Like, he did very small, like primarily straight to internet, like short films and movies and stuff. But like, because of that, people have been dissecting their personal lives, their personal comments, their sexualities. It's been very, very uncomfortable to watch. It's been uncomfortable to watch both their sexualities be like analyzed, but also invalidated at the same time. I've seen people being like, oh, he's straight, because talking about Hudson, because he has come out and said that he has a long-term girlfriend. This is something I was talking about with my friend before. So I'm not gonna just make the regular argument of like, you guys love to pretend that bisexuals don't exist. I want to go a little further and say that I don't, I really don't think that his sexuality matters. And what I mean by that is that I really believe that white LGBT people want their own N word. What do I mean by that? White LGBT people will see dynamics that are argued in communities of color, take it, and then put it into their discourse. For example, we know because of the history of minstrelsy. Why can I not talk today? I can never talk. Minstrelsy in this country, and blackface and racism and Jim Crow and segregation, that it is not valid for someone who is non-black to be portraying somebody who is black in like a movie or a TV show, with a few exceptions. For example, I'm pretty sure that Haley Steinfeld identifies as white and Ashkenazi Jewish. She has some percentage of black in her, but she played that person in Sinners that was considered half white, half black. It was a very nuanced role for her to play as someone who has never claimed blackness before, but it wasn't necessarily offensive in the way that it's offensive for somebody to don blackface and act as if they're a black man, like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, for example. But people will hear that and they'll hear, oh, this race of the majority should not be portraying this race of the minority. They'll take that discourse and then they'll add it to sexuality. And so you'll see a lot of people, particularly white LGBT people. And the reason that I'm picking on them is because not only are they in the majority, but they have power through white supremacy that communities of color do not have. So they'll see people that have ambiguous sexuality and they'll act like it's the same as having somebody in blackface pursue a black person, or not pursue, portray a black person. Oh, like straight actors should not be playing gay roles. And also vice versa. Um, you know, cis actors should not be portraying trans roles. And it's like, at some point, we do have to acknowledge that even though, yes, race, sexuality, and gender are all social constructs, some of these are a little more fluid or a little more like, you can lampshade a lot of them in media in different ways than you can about other things. Like, for example, it is very difficult for somebody who is white and only has the white experience to portray a dark-skinned black person without literally darkening their skin or going about it some way in a mockery. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with wanting to support openly queer actors and openly trans actors, but we live in a very, very dangerous world. As much as the internet likes to insulate us, and as much as, maybe your specific friend group, you're not feeling the brunt of homophobia, transphobia, lesbophobia, etc., like, the real world is excruciatingly homophobic. Not only that, Hollywood has a tendency to typecast you. So ambiguous sexuality or ambiguous gender allows you to act in more roles. You know what I mean? I think specifically of Hudson Williams portraying Shane Hollander, who is canonically, from the books and the show, he is half Japanese, half white, and he is gay. From what we understand of Hudson Williams, the actor, first of all, he's half Korean. So not even, it kind of goes to show you how racist Western audiences are, where they can't really differentiate between the types of Asian person. And then he has an ambiguous sexuality of some sort, or at the very least, we know that he's not explicitly homosexual because he has a girlfriend. Okay. I don't know how he identifies because I don't know him and I never will know him, but it's not really my business. I don't think it's the same thing as somebody donning blackface and claiming to be black for a role and then benefiting from that. People make it sound like, oh, you're just siphoning gay dollars and this is queer baiting and all this. A real person cannot queer bait you. People are using the term queer bait so incorrectly. And then beyond all of that, I said this to one of my friends. One of my friends was saying, oh, I don't even want to watch this show if I find out that the dudes in it aren't actually gay. their sexuality might not be real, but the kisses are. So why do I care? You know what I mean? It's not like it's they're using tongue and kissing each other and portraying these sex scenes, and then they go cut and the dude's like, oh, disgusting. Can you believe that I did that? I don't know. I just feel like everybody is trying to like make a villain out of these people unnecessarily. And maybe in the future, they will prove to be more problematic or more upsetting than they present themselves to be. But it's not really our business to jump and be like, oh, I knew it. I've seen this so much. Oh my gosh. Um, Old dudes, Hudson Williams, his letterbox history was leaked or something, and people on Twitter lost their minds being like, oh, he hates this movie and he hates this actor and who does he think he is and all this kind of stuff. I feel like a lot of people are like they are ready to tear somebody apart because they either don't like the media or they're so paranoid of like, there has to be a catch, and I'm going to find it and I'm going to figure out what's wrong with you. I think if we want more new shows to come out and new things to happen, two things need to happen. One, we need to stop being cops and we need to get more comfortable with ambiguity. And two, we need to get more comfortable with people having fucked up digital footprints. I'm sorry. As somebody who grew up on the internet, I've been in front of the computer since I was 3 years old. I was born in 1997. I cannot imagine what kind of messed up stuff that children that are born in the 2010s, mid 2010s, the 2020s or mid 2020s are going to have when it's like there are cameras on them all the time. They literally are born into Big Brother. Maybe they have opinions that they've posted on the internet that don't reflect how they are now. I know I do. But I hope that nobody's looking at my previous post or my previous opinions and going, well, I just can't trust you because of that. I saw something like that. And I apologize if I'm repeating myself from a previous episode. I don't remember. But there was a post that was talking about Lil Nas X and how he was wandering the streets last year in his underwear and he got arrested by police because he was outside being very distressing. Obviously not all there mentally. And people immediately thought that he was overdosing or he was on some kind of drug or he was under the influence. But in reality, he was actually having like a psychotic episode. Someone posted it and then somebody said, you guys owe this boy an apology. And I agree because he's been under the microscope since he was like, 20 years old? And not only was he under the microscope of being a mainstream artist, but he has, because he came out publicly, like we're talking about, oh, just come out. It's so safe. He has been he has gotten so many threats, physical threats. He's gotten so much backlash. He's gotten so much just shit for being himself. And yeah, the gays fuck with him, but a lot of people really don't. And they think that he's like the Antichrist. Even when he picks at like Christianity in general, which is, I feel like should be fair game in a Christo-fascist nation. Everybody has a different relationship with Christianity, whether they identify as Christians or not. I think it's very disturbing that people can't have satire or use Christian imagery without people wanting to literally kill them. So I 100% agree. I believe that people owe him an apology, one, for making his life a living hell in his early 20s and into his late 20s and constantly needing him to top the charts, but also not be a person. But also in this specific situation of him wandering the streets, people immediately went to him being on drugs. Nobody gave a fuck about his mental. And we don't know what it's like to be. I think he's said before that he was like really not doing well. I think he dropped out of school. All he was doing was SoundCloud rap. He was living with his sister. He wasn't doing well with his mom. His dad believed in him, but he really needed Old Town Road to blow up, or else he didn't know what he was going to do. He was probably going to sell drugs. It blew up. Now he has a whole different life. Now he's gone from, I think he used to be a Nicki Minaj stan page that was like really rude and nasty to people on Twitter, to one of the biggest celebrities of all time. So it's just like that adjustment, that scrutiny in the media, like I can't imagine the psychological damage that he has gone through. And now he's having a psychotic break and immediately people go to drugs. And I saw this one comment that was like, yeah, but he said something fucked up about Muslims one time. So, fuck him. I'm not apologizing for anything. Mind you, this person's not a Muslim. They just saw a post with Lil Nas X's face on it and immediately said, I don't like that guy because he said something fucked up about Muslims. So I said, hey, this is coming from a Muslim. Why do you feel the need to immediately undercut and undersell the trauma that this black man has gone through, this black queer man, openly gay man? Why do you feel the need to undercut that immediately with some shitty tweets that he made like 10 years ago? And they said, I don't know anything about his mental health. I was just commenting on his comment about Muslims. And I was like, the post that you're commenting on is about his mental health and the mental health break that he had. So let's stay on topic. This person's arguing me down, not even a Muslim, just talking shit about Lil Nas X, being like, I don't like him because blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter if you don't like him. We can acknowledge that this is a fucked up situation to put a human being in. Okay? Everybody's not gunning for you. Everybody's not, well, I got to get their information before they get mine or what. I don't understand that impulse. I think that I once, when I was on Twitter prior to 2020, I probably would have related to this impulse to constantly be like, your fave is problematic and this and that and the third. And I don't necessarily mean that we shouldn't criticize celebrities and we shouldn't feel like, hey, you know, our criticism or lack thereof of this celebrity does have a greater like message about our culture embedded in it. Like, I'm not even saying any of those things. I'm just saying, like, on a human level, give the guy a break, okay? So we need to get comfortable with people having fucked up digital footprints if we're going to have anything new. And I think that, sorry, that was such a tangent, but like, I think that like the combination of ruthless romance novel fans, combining that with the fact that this is now considered mainstream queer media has introduced audiences of people that were never supposed to meet. For example, there are gay men that had no idea that there are hordes and hordes of queer women that enjoy male-male romance. I don't think it's as simple as they're attracted to men and that's the reason that they like this stuff, because I know several lesbians that also are very into romance and, you know, write the stuff on AO3. I know asexuals that write fan fiction of male-male romance on AO3, fanfiction.net, Wattpad, and the like. Like, these communities have existed as long as the internet, forums, live journal, role-playing sites have existed. But this shows success and the fervent nature of the crowd that it draws is kind of peeling the layer back on that in a way that, like, I don't think a lot of gay men knew. A lot of gay men operate very insularly. Like, they don't really, like, even in communities of gay men, a lot of them don't really interact unless it's their direct partner or like they are forced into proximity through like work or something. They don't really interact with other people in the LGBTQ community. Like, generally, a lot of gay men hang out with gay men. And I guess I could say the same for other, like, I don't like using this word, but restrictive sexualities as well. Lesbians usually hang out with lesbians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Trans girls hang out with trans girls. Trans guys hang out with trans guys. Whereas like us non-binary people, us bisexual people, there's a little bit more of a mix. I have a friend who's bisexual and she's very openly bisexual and she's currently in a relationship with a woman. But because she's in that relationship with a woman, she is now very insular in these lesbian relationships. A lot of the friends that she makes are other lesbians. And when she told them that she was bisexual, they kind of were on edge with her. But then when she revealed that her partner was a woman, suddenly a lot of the people that she hangs around that identify as lesbians open up to her about a lot of stuff related to their relationships that they wouldn't have usually done. And it's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It's just done out of survival for everybody involved. But I think it's interesting the way that like there's not really a queer community. It's more so like different insulated pockets or insular pockets depending on your identity. So anyway, a lot of gay men hang out with just gay men, so they don't really have perspectives, especially misogynistic gay men. They don't really have the perspectives to understand that, like, hey, every woman that's like looking at you in the club, whether you're kissing or you're doing whatever, they're not looking at you in disgust. Some of these people think that you are very like hot and attractive and they like the fact that you're kissing men and all this kind of stuff. And so it's created this weird thing where there's been like, in my experience, a lot of queer women being like, hey, Heated Rivalry is cool and all, but don't fetishize gay men. Don't be disgusting. And then a lot of gay men being like, no, 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 please fetishize us, fetishize us. And it's been really funny. But I don't think that Jacob Tierney, Rachel Reed, or any of the actors in the show, when they made this show, especially because it had such a low budget, I don't think that they thought that it was going to have this kind of impact and create the discourse that it has created around this show and around male romance in general. Like every little thing that I've seen that's kind of sort of gay in the past 2 months, there's some comment on social media being like, is this Heated Rivalry? No, it's not. Like, you know what I mean? But it's a great show. And I've seen, oh my gosh, I've seen people being like, I mentioned this earlier, like, I'm not going to watch the show because I am a queer woman, I date women, I'm lesbian, and I'm not going to watch the show because I'm not attracted to men. And again, I get that sex sells. I get that that's like the main thing that you see on the mainstream blogs. It's not just about the sex, and that's not what keeps people coming to see it, because if that was what it was, people would just watch pornography. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe there's somebody. I've seen a few posts from primarily straight women that have been like, this show gets me so fucking hot. And then I suck on my boyfriend. And it's so cool. And I love the fact that these are my boyfriends. And, you know, I've seen those posts, that genre of posts, but like, it's not like to write it all off as like it's only women that are attracted to men that like this show is such an insult to the filmmaking process and the like added layers that Jacob Tierney has put into the show. I tried to do this conversation without any spoilers, but I really am excited about this direction that it seems that media is going in. Another example is the game Dispatch, not based off a romance novel, but Dispatch is a really cool choices matter kind of visual novel-esque game by some of the same people that made the Telltale games. It's by the people that created Critical Role, and it's under Ad Hoc Studio. And I tell people every time I suggest, that game to people is like, hey, engage with this, talk about it, do not stop talking about it, because all we're going to continue to get is spin-offs and the same freaking people in every show and the same 3 plot lines. Not to say that, Heated Rivalry and Dispatch and all these other things that have come out aren't building upon previous plot lines and like, there's nothing new under the sun. But I do think that a lot of people shy away from making new stuff and they keep depending on sequels and stuff like that because we don't have like hype around these things. So I'm tired of Heated Rivalry because I think that a lot of people who are perceiving it or making like discourse points about it, they're not engaging with the show like authentically. And then on top of that, they're not like looking at the bigger picture of like what this is saying about like queer media, queer culture, relationships between men. I've seen people being outwardly homophobic to the show or talking about it as if it's slop or it's disgusting. Like, I don't think that people get that, like, if you see a show that has the same amount of sex content as a show like Game of Thrones or Bridgerton or Euphoria, not even Euphoria, because Euphoria has full frontal, right? I've never watched it, but that's what I've been told. Like, if you see a show that's along the same lines as most like adult media, and the only real difference is that it's male romance and you're calling it slop and pornographic and all this kind of stuff, that is homophobic. It doesn't really matter if you identify as queer or not. That's homophobic because you are expressing direct disgust of sex between men. And I don't think that people understand that even though men are men and patriarchy is a thing and like all this other kind of stuff, that it is still very dangerous to be assigned male at birth and be in love with somebody who's assigned male at birth. With the popularity of Heated Rivalry, there's been a lot of athletes and stuff coming out, proposing to their partners, being open about the fact that they're gay, all this kind of stuff. Like it's created like a domino effect. And I'm not giving necessarily credit to Rachel Reed, because hockey romance has existed within the fan fiction and romance novel genre far before she started writing this series. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that like the popularity of the show has made a lot of people really happy. It's made a lot of people really excited. And then people think, oh, I'm going to come out or I'm going to do whatever. Do you know that there's a hockey player that literally did that with his fiance earlier this year, and he's already been attacked, like physically? Like it's really easy that when you're insulated by queer like social media and queer conversation, and maybe all your friends are queer and all this kind of stuff, that you start to believe that like, oh, the people who have more privilege than me, such as cisgender men who are only attracted to men and have like the power of patriarchy and misogyny and all these other vile things on their side, they must have so much more inherent privilege than me. But like I said before, a lot of people are arguing with hypotheticals and made up rage bait characters in their head and not reality. The reality is a majority of the world is still homophobic, regardless of what gender you are, regardless of what relationship dynamic you have. This isn't about Heated Rivalry, but I've seen people trying to argue that masculine women, butches and studs, like have more power than femmes in lesbian community. You're just making shit up at this point. You know what I mean? It's just like you're engaging with hypothetical points, and people are actually dying. People are actually getting physically attacked. Like that's not the reality of the situation. So anyway, this show is really important to me, and the only fruitful conversations I've had about this show have been primarily with other queer people. And most of the criticisms I've seen towards the show are from people who have not watched it, have not tried to watch it, immediately are just like, nope, it's popular, so I'm going to hate on it and I'm going to be a contrarian. And that makes me really sad, because it is a really good show, and I am not bullshitting any of you. I have watched this show 11 times. I'm taking a break. I'm actually reading the books. Horrible. Sorry, Rachel. I like this book. There's just a lot of things about it that like it'll get really good, and then she'll slip something in there that reminds you like, wow, you are a millennial. You know what I mean? Or like you are somebody that grew up on like what is that show or that movie, 16 Candles, 16 Wishes, whatever. You grew up on that kind of kitschy, corny, kind of like everything, like not that romance, the genre in general, everything's supposed to work out in the end anyway, but like she really like leans into it. Like she's like, and then they got a pony and they rode out into the sunset and all this kind of stuff. And this is the last point I'll make. I think that also, again, I said that queer media and romance novels, those audiences are completely different. Yes, they have overlap, but for the most point, they are distinct audiences. So you have a lot of gay cisgender men who already feel very bleak about their lives, not only existing as a gay man, but potentially getting a partner or being accepted by their family or being accepted by the public or not being threatened with violence. Like, you have that reality and you have these people that feel really bleak about their future, and then you're giving them this really happy, kitschy show where everything works out in the end and magically, the parents are accepting and all this stuff happens. And a lot of people don't buy it because they're like, they have that cynicism in them where they're like, this isn't realistic at all. This is just a fantasy. Yeah, it's romantasy. It's supposed to be fantasy. I think that romance is important not only because it reminds us what love can be. I remember seeing this TikTok of this guy. It was so sad. He said that, Heated Rivalry reminded him that as a gay man, he deserves love, not hookups, not you up on Grindr, not mindless sex, but genuine companion love that develops and takes time and isn't just obsessed with what genitals do you have and how can I make them do what I want them to do. I say that it's sad because like this show is great, but like it's not the greatest show of all time. And also, I don't think that media should be giving you a sense of self-love. You know what I mean? You deserve love not because you're gay, not because you're a man, but because you are a human being. Everyone deserves love, whether that's romantic love, platonic love, whatever. Because I know that, you know, aromantic people listen to this as well. I'm not saying that everybody deserves romantic love, but everyone deserves, you know, human beings. Part of the thing that separates us from the animals is this ability to have love and express it in the way that only humans are able to. You deserve that. You deserve that kind of devotion and connection from other people. I don't think that you should have to learn that from a book nor a TV show. And it makes me very sad that there's so many people that are like, oh, it's mostly just porn, but like they have all these feelings in it, and it's like that's just unrealistic because men don't love each other. I've seen people being like, oh, you can so tell that, oh my gosh, sorry to call out my friend if you listen to this, but my friend told me that they could tell that this show or the book was written by a lesbian because of the timeline involved and because of the care in the show. And I was like, no, I don't think Rachel Reed is a lesbian. And immediately they were like, I knew she was straight. Well, you just said that you knew she was a lesbian. Hang on. And it's just like, I don't think that her sexuality is relevant. I'm not saying it's not important. It would be really cool if we had like a queer writer behind this book, you know? But right now, because we don't know if she's bisexual or if she's straight or whatever, it's kind of Schrodinger's sexuality. It doesn't really matter. I think we should practice more death of the author. It's a gay show lead, as in like the director, Jacob Tierney, is openly gay. And then beyond that, men can care for each other. Men can be hesitant. Men can take years and years to become vulnerable. Men can hug. Men can kiss. Men can have like this goes back to what I was talking about with the TERFs. It's like it's unsafe to have this kind of essentialist thinking of like because of what you were born with between your legs, or God forbid you believe in the myth of socialization, like you have an inherent like adherence to your gender there because of how you were raised. It's like that's not how gender works. A lot of people think that's how gender works, but it's not. You can't just be like, well, you were raised male and therefore you have male tendencies that you're never going to be able to escape even if you transition. It's just like it depends. Like I don't know. It's like maybe there are like trans women that are chauvinistic. Maybe there are trans men that are, you know, permissible to a point that wouldn't necessarily be associated with masculine, but it's transphobic to insist that inherent to this person's assigned gender at birth, they are always going to be like that. I feel like we need to unclench, like for real. You know what I mean? So I just think that like romance acts as speculative fiction. Oh, this would never happen because how would they never get, you know, all this I'm trying to do this without spoilers, I'm sorry, but like how would this always work out, and how would this romance allows you the space to imagine a world where it all works out. That's what it is. And like for the purpose of people enjoying it, that's all it is. I don't know, it's just like the immediate turn to cynicism, I just don't respect it anymore. I don't respect nihilism. I don't respect cynicism at all, but especially from communities that are in the majority, like men, white people, cisgender people. Look, if y'all feel like there's no point and we should all just die, like not to be graphic, but why not lead the suicide pact? You know what I mean? What is the point of doing any of this if somebody who has all of the privilege can't make a way out? You know what I mean? Romance gives you a way out. Romance gives you a chance to be like, hey, you know, you can just enjoy this. You can just have fun. And I'm not saying it's all well written. I'm not saying this is the best show on the planet. I'm not even saying this is the best show of 2025 or 2026 or 2027. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying I enjoyed it, and I don't think that people are giving it a fair chance. And for that reason, I'm tired of hearing about it, because a majority of the people that I see talking about it are people that swear up and down that it's slop and it's horrible and stuff. Oh my God. Don't watch it. You cannot sit there and be like, I hate this show because it's mainstream and now everybody likes it and blah, 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 and I just can't say anything. You can say whatever you want until the day that you die. You just have to understand that some people may not enjoy what you say, okay? Well, I can't talk about that because Vic likes the show. And if you don't like the show, I'm not going to attack you. I'm just going to be like, why? Okay, that's a good point. Or, okay, that point's stupid. Or, did you watch the show? Or, it's just like, I don't get this whole thing of like, you just can't say anything anymore. I'm just very over it. So, yeah, it's a good show. I'm giving myself a break because 11 times is very, very over the top. But y'all know me. I'm not a big TV or movie person, but when I find something that I really like, I'm going all in. I've seen Deadpool and Wolverine 6 times. I've played Dispatch 4 times, and I've watched Heated Rivalry 11 times. And all 3 of them, AO3 hates to see me coming about all 3 topics. You know what I mean? Like, I just, I find what I like and I really, really focus in on it. I wanted to talk about this not only because it was like sitting on my mind for a bit, but every person I talk to in real life that like listens to my podcast is like, I really would love to hear your thoughts on Heated Rivalry. So these are my spoil-free thoughts. Maybe one day I'll do like a deep dive or something, or like a media analysis, because I do have like episode to episode like observations. I mean, I hope I would after 11 like viewings, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's a good show. I don't know. I think you should give it a chance, even if you're not like gung ho about male romance, because there's so much more going on. I just think, and it's such a cultural moment, like with the popularity of it, that it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you miss the boat, like not a FOMO situation, but more so like you may not understand a lot of cultural references going forward. Oh, and that's what I wanted to say. Beyond the show, beyond the actors, beyond all of that other stuff, just like this show has inspired me to work on my own novel that is, the main relationship is a male romance, but it also has female romance in it. And I've been writing it forever and a day, but I often give up on it because I'm like, who wants to read this? It's fine. I don't want to do it. It's not smutty, but it's like, it's still gay. And you see the renewed excitement around this show, and you get really excited as a writer or as an artist, and you're like, hey, no, queer media is very needed. Queer media moves everybody. It's important. Everybody's foaming at the mouth for it. So yeah. Anyway, that's all of my thoughts on that. Thank you. My final topic I want to talk about today is ICE and immigration, specifically here in it's a United States institution, of course, but specifically in Minnesota. This is so hard to talk about because I don't think that things have gotten so horrible, like around immigration in this country, that we have really lost the plot in a very strange way. Because, for one, there's a very specific type of immigrant that is being pursued by ICE, despite the fact that there are a lot of people from European countries or countries that are deemed Western that also have immigration violations in this country. They're not being targeted. It's primarily people of color. But a lot of people were really shook up by the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, because they are white and they are U.S. citizens. This isn't to mention that U.S. citizen Keith Porter was also murdered by ICE on December 31st of 2025. But I think, I don't know if it's because of anti-Blackness or if it's because it happened over New Year's Eve prior to the besiege on the occupation on Minnesota. I don't know why it's I mean, I have a feeling why, but like, I don't know why it's being so buried. But I do know that a lot of white America is now sympathizing with minorities because of the murders of Pretty and Good. And it's just so hard because it's like, for one, we don't have an opposition party in this country. Democrats have funded ICE like every single year, and it's only just recently become popular to like say that you want to defund ICE, even though the majority of the Democratic voting base is actually saying that we should abolish ICE altogether. Like, even the concept of defunding, it's just the same as the abolish the police, defund the police. There were still Democrats back then that were still like, whoa, 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 defund. That's crazy. They wouldn't even say abolish. You know what I mean? Um, this is much more than just the fact that we don't have an opposition party in this country for real, that the country is default legislatively far right, that we have white nationalists in our government, all these things. This is cultural. The pain I'm seeing across the country around ICE is cultural, bro. Like, yeah, you can probably expect that because I live in the South, I have encountered many a xenophobe, but like the sentiment is kind of bleeding into everything in America. And it's like, I don't want to sound like one of them corny bitches that be like, oh, but we're a big melting pot. But like, we literally are. We have nothing without immigration or like people from other countries. That's literally everything that we are. I'm not Native American. A lot of the people that I know, off the top of my head, I think I know 3 Native American people. And none of them live on reservations. You know what I mean? Like, so none of us are like from here. I can trace my lineage back here for hundreds and hundreds of years, but it's because of slavery. It's because of chattel slavery. My distant ancestors are from Haiti and from the continent of Africa. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, and I don't have to tell you guys this because we're not fucking stupid, but like the general public really is. We're having like civics 101 classes where these people who voted for Trump a third freaking time. Do you understand that the first time I voted in a national election was for Hillary Clinton in 2016? And even then I didn't like her because I knew even in 2016, when I was 18 years old, that she was an imperialist war hawk and evil and hates brown people, but I still opted to vote for her because I still believed in this idea of the lesser of two evil. I didn't really believe in it, but I was like, I can't vote for Trump, so I'm gonna do something. You know what I mean? That is the first time I voted in a national election, and there has not existed a national election since that has not had Donald Trump at the helm. Do you know how disgusting, like, the Republican Party saw the writing on the wall when Obama got into office, and they're like, we need a renegade racist to be in the office to pay back all of the left and all of the people of color and let them know that they need to be in their place. But also, we need somebody that's going to push this Nazi shit into the forefront. I have not voted in a presidential election in my lifetime. I am 28. I am turning 29 this year. I have not voted in a presidential election where Donald Trump was not on the ticket. Every freaking election, bro. 3 cycles, 12 years. And for the midterm and local elections, a lot of them will just be like, vote for me if you hate Trump. So it's just like, yes, we need to abolish ICE, obviously. Yes, we need to protect ourselves. I'm not going to say more because I'm already on 50 million list. But we need to do more than what we're doing is what I'm saying. But also this xenophobia is cultural. We need to, like, It's hard for me to take a lot of white leftists seriously. I'm picking on white people today. I'm sorry, y'all, but like, it's hard for me to take a lot of white leftists seriously because they have all these big lofty ideas about how we get free, how we get liberation. But then their uncle goes off on a like anti-Indian tirade and they say nothing. I don't want you handling, like, there's been so many white people that have been arming themselves lately. Yeah, we got to arm ourselves because, if we go to freaking civil war with these ICE people, we need to be ready. I don't want anybody wielding a gun that can't stand up to their schizo-affected uncle. Sorry. Your grandpa has dementia, but he remembered he's racist. Remind him that it's bad to be racist. And I know that I'm not in that situation. So maybe it's easier said than done, but my God, like the culture, we need to change the culture. I've seen so many Trump supporters being like, I voted for Trump 3 times and this is the last straw for me because he said he was only going to round up the criminals and the people who are doing whatever, whatever, whatever. I am so tired of applying morality to immigrants. Oh, you're one of the good ones. I didn't think they would get you. I'm tired of it. I don't care if somebody immigrates to this country illegally and sits on their ass. And when I say sits on their ass, you have to know undocumented people pay taxes. I don't care if they evade their taxes every year. They don't contribute to the government. They don't contribute to the economy. They sit their ass and they stay on their couch and they play 50 rounds of COD a day. I don't care. I think that person is just as much of an American as anybody else. I gotta be honest. I don't give a shit about illegal immigration. This is such a waste of time. This is a waste of time, and it's a waste of resources, and it's cruel. It's nasty. It's disgusting. I know so many people that cannot go to their jobs that they have had for years and years and years. Here in Georgia, in Florida, in South Carolina, across the South, but it's not just the South, obviously, across the nation that will not go to their jobs that they work to get because they're scared that they're going to get, detained by ICE or pulled over by ICE or something like that. And there are idiots in this country that will make you believe that that is okay. And that's a reality we have to be in. I need people to think bigger. It's so tragic that Renee Good died that way. She didn't have to. We can create a world in which this doesn't happen because we can abolish ICE. This is not a hypothetical. This is not, you remember when people were talking about abolishing the police and Brittany Broski was like, we don't actually mean abolishing the police. We mean allocating resources we mean abolition, getting rid of. The same way that we didn't, we should abolish slavery. We should abolish prisons. We should abolish police. And we should abolish ICE. We do not have to create this reality where things just happen and people die every day. Why are we so obsessed with carciality and carciality, being carceral and punitive nature that we have to sit there and be like, well, that's just the way life goes. What if it didn't? What if y'all weren't fucking racist for one day? You know what I mean? So I just want to see a culture shift. I want to see people getting upset again. I've joked that woke is back and we need to be ruder and we need to be nastier. I mean it. It's not acceptable. Oh, well, Vic, you got to understand, coming from a Southern Baptist family, I'm a little poor church boy. You got to understand, my Auntie Jean's just going to be like that. Fuck her. Why is this acceptable to you? So I leave you with that. I want you to ask, why is it that we, as the most powerful nation on the earth, the one with the most weapons, the one with the most carciality, the one with the most punitive measures, this whole idea of you either eat or be eaten, everyone needs to be carrying a gun because there might be someone around the corner that has one and you want to be ready and all this kind of stuff. Why is it, do you think, that we are being brutalized in this way? Could it be by design by the nation? I don't know. I'm just so over it. But I wish all of you a great rest of your morning, evening, day, night, whatever time you are listening to Vicsplaining. And I am going to try my best to be a little more consistent. I know I say that in every episode, but I really, really, really am going to try. I thank you for tuning in. And I'm hoping that next episode might be a little less analytical. The episode that I ended up deleting, like I said, I talked about a lot of bullshit, but it was bullshit that I enjoyed. It was fun. And yeah, I also encourage you to fight cynicism, fight nihilism, and remember that, like, I mean, part of the leftist, like, dream is to create a better world. It's not to create a better world because it's the right thing to do, even though that is part of it. It's to create a better world that we continue to proliferate in. We need to create a world where people want to continue living. Immigrants, trans people, children, people who are in subjugated classes want to continue living. So yeah, despite everything, I'm going to continue to choose hope. And I hope that you will as well. Thank you so much for listening. I love you lots. And goodbye.